0.
This is Comrade Net of the Jewish Antifa Bundist Vanguard on behalf of the Jewish Socialist Bund. I am here to ask some questions to Comrade Dr. Abraham Weizfeld, also of the Alliance of Concerned Jewish Canadians, also as well as on behalf of the Jewish Socialist Bund. So if you'd like, we could get right into the questions.
Yes, let's go.
All right. So, why would such a minor act of graffiti be a reason for a criminal code charge?
Well, you know, like people should know that I've been arrested here in Montréal, Quebec, Canada, under the accusation that I have committed a grave crime under the Criminal Code of Canada called mischief. And the accusation is that I had written the words "and a free Palestine" on a small space of a poster put up on behalf of the Israel Day Parade. And the poster was located in front of the Jewish Community Center of Montréal. And this incident took place, you know, just after I had left a meeting inside the Jewish Community Center that Tuesday morning, together with the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust that meet there on a regular basis. So on the way out, you know, like I figured, you know, wow, you know, like they're trying to sort of, you know, claim that the entire Jewish community is, you know, behind this Israel Day Parade. And I couldn't do that. I had to sort of reply. And so this is considered to be some sort of a criminal act. And in brackets, the police have written graffiti. So the criminal code, you know, for a charge of mischief of this nature includes a penalty of up to 2 years in prison. So it's taken very seriously. And this is the reason for my arrest here. And I've been to a meeting with the police in which I was locked in a room, first of all, and told, you know, what the conditions are for my release. And the conditions of my release have been that I not return to the Jewish Community Center, that the audience, you know, the preliminary audience, the comparution in French, is taking place the 21st of August, and that I will appear. And then I was released on my own recognizance. So it's being treated as a very serious matter, you know, by the police and by the accusers. And the accusers are an interesting sort of question as well.
And that brings us to the next question. Why would this incident be considered so serious that the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs would accuse you of a hate crime?
Yes. Well, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs is, as you can tell, you know, by Israel being first before Jewish, is that's the organization of the Zionist lobby in Canada. And they, you know, took this as an affront, you know, that, you know, Israel is being compared with Palestine, or Israel is being foisted as a replacement for Palestine. And they cannot tolerate any such implication. And so they resorted to the Hate Crimes Division of the Montreal Police and accusing me of having committed a hate crime, because, you know, any criticism of Israel must be hateful, because there can be no other rationale, you know, for anybody to criticize Israel other than, you know, being anti-Jewish, because Israel is supposed to be the Jewish nation state, which it is not. Why it is not is because the majority of Jewish people, one, do not live in Israel. You know, so they cannot claim to speak on behalf of the Jewish people. And two, you know, the Jewish people who live outside of Israel, of course, don't have a vote in the Israel elections. So to claim that they represent, you know, all of the Jewish people throughout the whole entire world, and in Canada in particular, is false, factually incorrect. So they're trying to hoist this false information and imposed it upon, the Canadian political culture by accusing me of violating this convention, the Zionist convention of treating Israel as if it's representing all the Jewish people, and therefore, if you criticize Israel, you must be attacking the Jewish people as a whole, which I'm not, because I could not be accusing myself of that which others are doing. And I refuse to be a Zionist. I was raised as a Jewish Bundist by my mother from Warsaw. And I'm a second-generation Holocaust survivor, as both my mother and my father escaped into the Soviet Union during the Holocaust, and then met in the refugee camp in Wetzlar in Germany under the American sector. Then moved to Canada because my father's sister was a resident citizen and was able to sponsor us. Whereas most of the Jewish refugees were not allowed into Canada because they are pro-Zionist. Canada was pro-Zionist, Christian, Protestant, pro-Zionist, and wanted to force the Jewish refugees into Palestine to serve the cause of the Zionist movement and Zionist parties, rather than allowing all these Jewish Socialist Bundists, into Canada, which they could not tolerate, evidently.
Painful, honestly. Next question is, why would the accuser be changed from the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs to the Combined Jewish Appeal? I find this confusing.
Well, they want to sort of, make it out to be, an attack on the Jewish community. So they can't do that if they're doing it in the name of a political organization, which is the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, which is only open to Zionists. So in order to make it stick, they had to change it to the Combined Jewish Appeal, which is probably the owner of the building that is called the Jewish Community Center. So, and the idea is that the Jewish Community Center was the owner of the poster, which had the graffiti written on it. So I guess they're going to play it that way, and trying to turn it into an accusation being made by the Jewish community and not by, a political organization. I replied to the police initially by saying, well, if it's an organization that is accusing me of this crime, which is rather unusual, usually it's some individual, and then the police, make the accusation in the name of the individual. But now it's in the name of an organization. I said, well, if it's an organization that's accusing me, then I should be accused as being, the administrative secretary of the Alliance of Concerned Jewish Canadians. It should be organization to organization and not me as an individual. But that was not accepted, because they're trying to make it out, to be, like one isolated individual, and that there is no opposition, that there is no such thing as a Alliance of Concerned Jewish Canadians. And, that would explain, why the name of the accuser was changed from the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs to the Combined Jewish Appeal. Organizationally, the Combined Jewish Appeal is the organization that receives donations from the Jewish community, from Jewish civil society, to pay for Jewish social services, Jewish Community Center, the Jewish Art Gallery, the Jewish Museum, the Jewish Public Library, all of that. It's financed by the community. And yet, I think there's a fault in that alignment, because the Israel Day Parade is being sponsored by the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. It's a political parade. It's a Zionist parade. So it's not the Jewish community that's holding this. So I think they've made a mistake right off the bat, which I will address in the court, and point out that they have no legal basis on which to file such a complaint, because the poster doesn't even belong to them in the first place, if it's the Combined Jewish Appeal which is making the accusation. So you can see, like how flimsy an accusation this is, and they're falling over themselves, right away, because they don't know what they're doing, and they have no basis on which to make such an accusation.
Yeah, so far it's been rather incoherent. My next question is it true that your book, your most recent book, that is the Federation of Palestinian and Hebrew Nations. This is the book I'm referring to everybody. And I do suggest people actually get this book and request this book in their local libraries. Is it true that this book was expelled from the Jewish Public Library soon after?
Yeah, like the day after, I got this email from the police of the hate crimes unit, of course, saying that they have received this book from the Jewish Public Library, and they want to return it to me, because the Jewish Public Library will not accept this book anymore, even though it's registered in the catalog, even though they had accepted it initially. All of a sudden, the Jewish Public Library has been probably ordered to expel my book. Now, expelling a book from a Jewish Public Library, is a big no-no. Jewish community doesn't expel books, usually. I think it's the only book that's ever been expelled, from a Jewish Public Library anywhere. So, what's the big deal? And, and what they have ignored is that I have two other books, in the Jewish Public Library, which are still there, at least as far as I know, because, the first book that I gave to the Jewish Public Library, the book on the documentary study on the Sabra Shatila massacre during Israel's invasion of Lebanon in 1982, was in the library, but now it's disappeared from the catalog. The only book left that appears on the catalog that is still in the library, as far as I know, is the book published in 1989 called The End of Zionism and the Liberation of the Jewish People. So it's, it's so, mixed up what's going on, It seems like they're panicking and doing things quickly and harshly, overly harshly, and they have overextended their credibility and their power. And I expect that this case will be resolved with my acquittal, even though it's possible that I can be convicted on a technicality, a formal technicality, in which there's a pro-Zionist judge, in which case I'm subject to 2 years imprisonment under criminal code charge of mischief under $5,000 damage. Which is another point, that is so irrational, because, what the cost is of this poster, probably is less than $1. So I'm being charged under the criminal code, mischief under $5,000. It's totally disproportionate.
Indeed. By the way, people should also read End of Zionism and Liberation of Jewish People. I have a copy of that book. And Shatila and Shatila Massacre is very highly read by a lot of people. In fact, you sent Corporal Cat a copy of that book, which they did read, by the way. So the next
by the way, both books, all my books are available for downloading for free on the website academia.edu.
Yes, that is true. That is true, and I do encourage that people should do that. You'd find both books. I mean, Shatila and Shatila Massacre is more popular, but I loved End of Zionism because you had interviewed people, including Chomsky.
Yeah, I outed Chomsky as a Jewish man. Before that, he was like covering it up.
Yeah, well, post-Zionist kibbutz guy. They're not really proud of being Jewish at all. But anyway, the next one is the next question: are you being attacked because you are a Bundist?
I would suspect so, because as an individual, I don't hold enough weight, but if I'm speaking on behalf of the Jewish Bund, they don't want the Jewish Bund to come back. They don't want people to know that there is an alternative Jewish, political culture. So, and I guess I must have made some headway, in terms of making myself known and making the Jewish Bund known in Montreal, because because I had just come out of the Jewish Community Center, at this meeting, with the Holocaust survivors. And of course, I was talking with the Holocaust survivors. And of course, they would be interested in knowing about the Jewish Bund because they know about the Jewish Bund. They know the Jewish Bund was the most important, Jewish political organization and party in Eastern Europe before the Holocaust, rather than the Zionists. And this is something that should not be known, because Zionism is supposed to represent all the Jewish people, and everybody has to be a Zionist, otherwise they're not Jewish, type thing, which is false. So it would seem so, but they don't want to accuse the Jewish Socialist Bund chapter in Canada, the Alliance of Concerned Jewish Canadians, by name, because they don't want to publicize the name of the organization. They just want to attack me as an individual. And it seems they think they can get away with it, but they've made a major mistake.
I'll say. Now, have you been contacted by any mainstream or alternative press? Because like the only press that you've so far gotten seems to have been Jason Under the Mouse Rebel, Red Pagan Nicole at Red Pagan Corner, Dark Snovia, Maxwell Glover, and Cara Stokely of Lumpen Maoist News.
Yes, and these are videos of solidarity that have been posted on the YouTube channels for each of them. And they're available there for anybody to look up as well.
And reposted on at the Bundist movement as well.
Yes, this video is going to be posted on the Bundist movement channel as well as my channel and your channel, I presume.
Yes.
Yes. So the mainstream media, cannot cover a matter of this nature, because then they would have to reveal that there are Jewish people who are not Zionists, so which cannot be admitted to. If we're talking about the alternative media, other than the revolutionary socialist media, the alternative media, like Democracy Now! Or Gray Zone, or
Real News Network,
yes, or Stan Heller, even, like none of these, have the guts to talk about this, because they're worried maybe about what? What could they be worried about? Like it's nonsensical. It's just that they're not members of the Jewish Bund. They probably came from originally, from Communist Party parents, who, they've been indoctrinated, with a fear of anything other than populist, politics and, revolutionary socialist politics, as is the Jewish Bund. Well, it's too heavy for them to deal with. So they don't. That's the way they cope with it. I was even, a founder of the Pan-Canadian Jewish Opposition Movement that held a conference sponsored by the Alliance of Concerned Jewish Canadians in Toronto in 2018. And soon after, the ex-Communist Party members there expelled me because I was criticizing them for their anti-Semitic language, that they weren't even conscious of it. And I was trying to educate them. No, like they didn't want to know.
I think it's because you are Jewish, because you notice none of them interview Neturei Karta, just as they don't interview you. They are Jewish, you are Jewish, like unquestionably.
Yeah.
So like it's
and as well, like previously, they were not Jewish. They were assimilated Jewish. They even changed their names, so that they would not be known as being Jewish. And then because they thought that they were working, within the working class, in the working class, you can't be Jewish and be a leader, because the working class is anti-Semitic, supposedly. And they don't know how to cope with the anti-Semitism that is found within the working class. So they deny that it exists, and they deny that they are Jewish, and that solves the problem for them until I came along. Until, the Palestine liberation came along as a major political issue, which they had ignored before. The Marxists started to pay attention only after the general public became aware of the Palestine struggle, after the massacre of Sabra Shatila, which became known internationally. And then even the Marxists had to speak up and oppose it. But previously, no, they ignored it entirely.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that this also does get into is that the conclusion of the Bundist movement was that the Jewish proletariat of North America is a lumpen proletariat. and you come from you actually have semi-lumpen history, and full lumpen struggle, actually, if I recall.
Yeah, well, being unemployed certainly means that I've been lumpen. Since I worked at the Palestine Embassy in Ottawa, where I wrote the book on Sabra Shatila, I haven't been able to get any teaching at the university. Not at the university, not at any college, not at any high school even, and certainly not at any Jewish school. I've applied to all of those, no replies from any of them.
The
Okay,
whole world is wondering, where are you, Amy Goodman, through all this? Tisk tisk.
And even though, like I was a professor at the, the title was course director at the York University in Toronto from 1977 to 1980. And when I taught 2 courses, I was a specialist in the introduction to Canadian Canada-US relations, the political economy of Canada-US relations. And the other course that I taught was in political theory.
You could put it on a resume, that's good. That's good for a resume.
Oh yeah, like I have a 15-page, like a CV, but it doesn't work. Nobody wants to allow me to teach. Okay, so I write. No problem. Yeah.
This wasn't one of the questions, but I do have to ask this question. Are you surprised that communists of the Maoist and the Third Worldist type and anarchists of the street lumpen type are really the ones most interested in you?
Well, there used to be a term in the Yiddish political culture called a Freidenker, a free thinker. It became part of the American English political tradition as well. Yeah. A free thinker are those people who are not committed to any, given, political framework. They're not a member of a political party with democratic centralism. They're not, holding a position of employment in which they're paid, to keep their mouth shut, basically. They're free to hear other people who are marginals as well, who have ideas that they have not encountered before because they're not available in the mainstream political culture, media, or even in the internet. So, marginals, will understand, my situation, my train of thought, and the need of recognizing, 1, Jewish identity, the need of recognizing, 2, the need for Jewish liberation from anti-Semitism, which is growing, which was not recognized by the Marxist milieu previously at all. And the marginals are usually people who are repressed themselves, and so they understand, how the repression works, and that, the isolation to which I have been subjected to is real and is understandable, for the political reasons involved. And so, it's much easier to communicate with the marginals, lumpen proletariat, for that reason.
Yeah.
Also, I come from a lower working class, background in any case. My father was a refugee who didn't even know English at first. My first language from my parents, was Yiddish, because they didn't know English. So I didn't learn English until I went to primary school. So lumpen proletariat, is the most dynamic, the most politically conscious milieu of the working class, whereas the rest of the working class is just interested in keeping their job. They may not even be interested in their union activities, because that would be, personally insecure. And the level of unionization in the United States as well is very low. It's like only 11% of the working class is unionized, so it's difficult to find a union in the first place. So, and then they ended up, like, if they are talented enough, they get to be, like in the upper, echelon of salary, in which case, they become the aristocracy of the working class, in which case their interests are not with the working class as a whole, but only with their own personal, status. So the lumpen proletariat is the most dynamic and the most intelligent of the working class.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue like that people in prison or that prostitutes or like underemployed, lumpenized employees are going to be the most politically dynamic because we're completely screwed. Like Marx was wrong about the lumpen proletariat completely.
Yeah, like Marx thought it was going to be so easy. Oh, well, no, it's much easier for fascism to take control than it is for socialism. By the way, here's my T-shirt from 2001. This comes from a conference that I helped organize in 2001 that united the Jewish opposition for the first time in North America. Also South America, there were delegates from. And can you read the top here?
Jewish Unity for a Just Peace?
Yes, that's right. That was the name of the coalition that formed that conference in 2001.
I've also seen you wear the shirt quite a few times, and I usually associate that shirt with you.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a different shirt. I'm wearing in solidarity to the communists for covering what's going on with Comrade Weizfeld here.
Yes. And then we adopted this slogan. This was
end the occupation.
To both the people who supported two-state solution and those who supported one-state solution, and the occupation. This united the Jewish opposition.
Well, I think that about covers it.
I have something else to show you. Really? This, but you can't see it, yes. With a blur on. So yes, here it is. Here, I'll take the blur off, and then you can see it.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, you can see it as long as I hold it steady. No. Okay.
You might have to back it up a bit.
There it is.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. This is sort of a symbol of my status as a Jewish Palestinian. When I'm in Palestine, I'm considered to be treated as a Palestinian. Ana Yehudi Filistini in Arabic, actually.
Yes.
And this symbolizes that, which is a breakthrough. It's, like a conceptual breakthrough. So, when I'm in Palestine, I'm not an Israeli. Where am I? I'm a Jewish Palestinian in Palestine, like the Neturei Karta people in Meir Sharim and the Hasidim there in Satmar, and that's a conceptual breakthrough that has to be denied, by the Zionists. Otherwise, they lose their rationale. The Zionism is so flimsy as a political theory, that they only can keep it together, by agreeing to lie. And everybody who's a Zionist, they know that they're lying, but they think that it's necessary to do so. It's in the interest of the Jewish people to lie and say that the Jewish people are the only indigenous people, of that territory.
They also placate to the Protestant churches, which is by far the most anti-Semitic. I mean, at least with the Catholics, there's collective apologies, but it's all the individual one. Especially if you're like talking Calvinist.
Yeah, that's essential, and because without the support of the Western Christian churches and the Protestant churches in particular, it would be nowhere. And because the Zionist colonization of Palestine started off with next to nothing. They had some arms that were passed to them by the British occupation. The British occupation helped them as well by disarming the Palestinians. The British occupation, in terms of the BBC, made the announcement to the Palestinians that they should run away from the villages for their own security and that they would be allowed to return in 2 weeks. That's where that big lie came from the BBC, Arabic. The only thing that saved Zionism was the fact that the Western Christian countries, nation states, wouldn't accept the Jewish refugees from the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Okay, so they had to go to Palestine. They didn't think of, like in Wetzlar at the refugee camp where my parents were. They could have said, okay, well, this is our territory now. We're not leaving.
It's the thing is Zionism was always alien to the Jewish people. And it will always be the case that it is, in fact, the Protestants that are obfuscating responsibility here. We've been combating the Zionists as soon as they started.
Yes. So in exchange for support from the Protestant and Christian churches, Zionism refrained from attacking them for their anti-Semitism and for the lack of support and solidarity during the Holocaust. That was the deal. Okay. Oh, we have to finish soon, because we only have
Yes, we are running out
limited
of time.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've interviewed you.
Yeah. But the second thing that saved Zionism was when they got all the Mizrahim, who were scared into running away from the Arabic countries. And there was even, like bombs set off by the Zionists, to emphasize, the opposition, limited opposition from the
yes, and they tried to blame it on Muslims
at the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then the third thing that saved Zionism was the wave of migration from the Soviet Union of the Jewish, so-called Jewish, Russians and Ukrainians that came to Israel, like a million or 2 million.
Yes.
Without those two waves, those three waves, like the number of Zionists who actually wanted to go to Palestine, was very limited, and it made no sense to them whatsoever. To the Jewish people as a whole, to go to a country in which they didn't even speak the language, Jewish people don't speak Hebrew. Jewish, Hebrew is just used, for reading the prayers and the Torah and that sort of thing.
Liturgical. Hebrew's very liturgical.
The Jewish languages, like Yiddish, first of all, and Ladino, like in Jewish Arabic, and all this, like Hebrew was, like.
Even Russian is more common with us than Hebrew. Hebrew's
liturgical. Like even within Israel itself, now, they keep Russian, like there's Russian newspapers, forget about Hebrew.
Because it's a racket. The whole thing's been a racket from the start, a dangerous racket.
Yeah. Okay, it's been great speaking with you. So let's get this out, to people so they know that I've been arrested for writing "and a free Palestine." That's all.
A minuscule thing, and they're threatening him with all kinds of things.
2 years in prison, like for writing that, like
free Palestine. We should say that, free Palestine.
Yeah, and the way I wrote it too, like was so conciliatory as well, and a free Palestine. I didn't deny the existence of Israel even. Okay, Israel exists, but Israel should be, legally liable to recognize that Palestine exists as well. There is, like a building in Ramallah, in the West Bank, saying the state of Palestine, and the PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, at the front entrance that I've been to.
This book, people should ask for this book locally in their libraries and in their schools.
Yes, yeah. It's also printed editions are available for, minimal costs, even a Kindle edition is available for $4.
It's very, 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 very well written.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I wrote that in Nablus, that's not written here in Montreal, Canada. No, it's written in Nablus, over the 3-4 years that I was there working away. And, like the people, the things that people said to me and the questions that they had for me, are the questions that I've answered in this book. This is a book written essentially for the Palestinian people. And now it's been translated into Arabic. It's been published in Jordan, and it's been smuggled into Israel. That is, like the West Bank in Nablus.
And it's becoming popular amongst a lot of the poor and colored people and native Mexica people out in Arizona.
And also it has a constitutional framework in it, which is applicable to any other society where you have multinational social formations, which is everywhere. So,
I think that's its appeal. Yeah. I think that's the appeal it has over here.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to get this out.
Kaimel Nish Nochamol.
Kaimel Nish Nochamol. Never again.
Never again, partisans.
Yeah.